Hi, this is Mark Rothermich with Big Picture Ag, and I've got a question for you. During harvest, when you see those great numbers on the yield monitor, or maybe some that cause you to scratch your head, do you ever wonder why your yields end up where they do, good, bad, or otherwise? I'm going to share with you an assessment you can spend 5 minutes doing that will give you clues as to what you want to duplicate or try to avoid in the future. Tag along as I share how easy this process is and what things you can learn in the 5 most valuable minutes spent. But remember, once you've run the combine, all of this is gone. I coined the phrase the 5 most valuable minutes spent. And it's because in those situations like David had there, where you're seeing really great yields, or it may be a situation where maybe yields aren't as good as you'd like. Obviously, if the corn drowned out, pretty obvious, why the yield monitor fell off. But if it's just more conventional dips in yields, understanding why we have the highs and the lows on the yield monitor and in the field, how do we assess that? And so the first thing you need to do is stop. And I understand that's hard to do. You want to get, harvest done. But if you take a shortened version of the late season ear assessment, I'm going to walk through real quick how you can spend 5 minutes and get a great understanding of why you're seeing those really good numbers or why other areas may not be as good. So when you get into those spots, or even, I encourage you, if you've got a little downtime waiting on the truck to get back, or you're waiting on the grain cart to get full, or whatever, if you've got 5 minutes, time or two a day, just jump out of the combine. So, and let me see if I can move this a little bit so that we can see that better. But guys, just walk along the edge of that row. When you pick down through the field, it's a great place. It's so much easier to see the plants out there and what's going on with them. But walk along the edge of the row, count 100 plants, and keep track of how many deficient or blank ears you've got. Step in a couple rows and count right back down another 100, and just keep track of. Whatever number you end up with on each one, that's your percentage of how many deficient ears you've got. Make a note about that in your notebook. And then find a place and just shuck back 20 or 30 ears. Just leave them on the stalk, that's fine, but shuck them back and look at them. How consistent are they for ear set? How high, what's the height set? How consistent is that? What are you seeing for deficient ears there or other issues that may show up? And then I would encourage you to grab 6 to 12 ears in a row and just quickly count what you've got for kernel numbers on rows around and length, and write them down. How do these numbers correlate with others that you've seen? And understand different hybrids, and so a lot of times different companies have different perspectives. A lot of times you'll see certain companies, they may not get as much length to the ears, but a lot of times the trade-off is the kernel weight is good. Other ones, they're going to have really long ears, but maybe your kernel weight won't be quite as high. They're all going to kind of land in there for your total yield wherever you land, but just keeping track of that, and make notes on any observations that you made on plant health or other issues. Is there still green in the top of the plants where the yield is really high? I'm going to say 90% of the time you're going to see that. Are there diseased ears? What challenges are there? What percentage of those kind of problems do you have? Making notes of this so that when you go into the house this winter and you pull up those yield maps and you say, wow, look at what that spot in that field did. David, I guess I would ask you if you could replicate even the 350 number across the whole field, would you be pretty happy about that?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be excellent.
That'd be excellent. And we all, I mean, I think all of us, when we see that number, would want to, that's our objective. I mean, to get a 300 bushel field average, you got to see a lot of that 350 number. So we need to be stopping and looking what components came together to give me that yield, and if you can, grab a half a dozen of the ears, throw them in a bag, put a note on it where it's from. You can always shell them off, I mean, later, and check for kernel weights and do those type of assessments. But guys, to do that, I can literally show you how you can do that in 5 minutes. You can do all of those things right there in 5 minutes. And the information that you can get from that is just going to give you leaps and bounds gain when you start trying to figure out, where do I need to make some changes, or what can I do? What can I do to make some improvements? Does everybody have a notebook that they've got in the combine so they can make notes on this? Like I say, just looking at different varieties, different companies, tracking all of that stuff, there's going to be different nuances. One of the things that this has really brought to light for me, because I never, you know, in the beginning, I wasn't necessarily tracking um, hybrids or companies, things like that as much. But when you start to realize that the difference, the one, I know with some of you guys, we've talked about the fact that, hey, if we could increase that 30, 34 kernel long ear to 40, that's over a 10% yield increase. Or if we're already getting 44 long, but our kernel weight may not be, quite as high as a result of that, what can we do to help feed that plant a little bit more, and maybe add some more weight to those kernels? It can really give you a good target on where's an area that we can try to impact this crop in relationship, what do we see in other areas?
Mark, I'd just add to that. I mean, we've talked about it before, but if you guys are planting different companies, corn, you really need to keep track of, what hybrid you're doing your ear assessment on, or you're getting your ear weights, or if you have a favorite hybrid that you is your staple that you're always, planting every year. That's probably one of those ones that you want to see if you can influence that one and measure it year after year, because there's a big difference between different companies' genetics as far as ear weight and kernel weights. So that's just one thing I would add.
So there you have an idea what the 5 most valuable minutes spent are. I hope you'll spend some time this harvest season taking cues from this year's crop. It's an invaluable process to identify direction for next year. If you'd like to learn more or discuss what some of these factors mean, or even how to analyze them, feel free to reach out to me at bigpictureag@gmail.com. This is Mark with Big Picture Ag. Thanks for joining, and I look forward to hearing from you.